deadline.
Oh, okay. 9:30, as in half an hour ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And apparently the price of oil has gone down, so that's sort of encouraging.
All good.
Welcome everyone to this Tasmania District Council Audit Risk Committee for April. We have two absentees, Tony Seacombe and Vanessa. And
Direct again. Yeah.
okay. So welcome everyone. Mentioned there are no apologies from the committee, and no leave of absence. And
It's all right, it'll come back.
confirmation minutes, and can we produce some confirmation minutes? Someone please. It's a question.
Oh, I was going to move it.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, Mo. Seconded. Thank you very much. Those in favour. Thank you. Shannon, remind me with them. You can call out the recommendation if you like.
Yeah.
Remind me anything. Thank you. Okay, business arising from the minutes. Any queries or comments on the business arising? No. Thank you for that. Reports. When you come reports, 5.1 review of CEO's corporate purchase card. Tony was going to speak this one. You'd like to speak, Jason?
Yeah, I want to talk about my own.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, well, you can read it. It's yes. I don't use it for anything, keep it if I'm away at conference. It's I buy my own lunch and what have you. So it's all there. It's mainly subscriptions and yeah. So recommendation. Audit Risk Committee receives and notes the contents of this report.
Seconded by Brian. All those in favour, thank you. That's carried. Corporate purchase card policy. Jason.
Again, you've got it all there. You read it. There's very, very little change. There's typos. Yeah, there's nothing really in there. It's all valid. I've been through it.
I guess the question really is, I understand the reason for having it there because the Auditor General at some stage.
Yeah.
And it takes us 10 seconds anyhow, so I guess we just literally think about once a year or something. But
there's not a bad reason to have it. And one thing is because it's something I've done in previous councils as well, is there is some efficiencies to be gained in purchasing and having cards for outside staff and work staff instead of having to do something, ring someone up, right, need a purchase order, and then go to them. If they've actually got a card and permission and actually got budget set, there's actually efficiencies to be gained there. So we don't have that in there yet, but it's something to sort of that we can keep open.
Okay, so we've had a mover and a second.
Give the recommendation.
Yes,
the Risk Committee endorses the corporate purchase card policy and recommends that council that it be adopted.
Mover on, second Mark. All those in favour, thank you. That's carried. 5.3 policies for periodic review, procurement policy.
So,
Jason, second.
Yeah. Procurement policy is one that I thought we were going to have to review quite heavily. But when we actually reviewed it, it said everything in there that we need to do anyway. Yeah. So I'm using this opportunity to talk a little bit about procurement, and Jen, if you want to spark up about what we've got going at the moment. The main thing we're really looking at is the panel contracts at the moment, instead of just going for quotes each time, to actually get electricians, get plumbers, pumps, irrigation, all of that sort of stuff, just to get them set in stone. We've got local government procurement sort of helping us with that at the moment. And the main reason for that is about the compliance side of it. So it'll all be done through vendor panel, or they call it Unimarket now. And it means that if we can get them onto Unimarket, and then all of their insurances and all of that is automatically sent out to them, and we can it's not something we have to do internally. It's something that they will do, and we can be sort of rest easy with our compliance as well, with our contractors. So the procurement policy, not much has changed. We did remove the table back because it's in delegations anyway. It didn't need to be there. Be done through 3 delegations.
Just a couple of quick queries. First of all, give me a couple of the delegations. What are the dollars?
Ben, Director of Infrastructure has got $50,000,
Yep.
which is grossly inadequate for signing up. Just to do a rubber contract will be $130,000 or something like that. And he's really making any changes. Can you do this instead of he should have he does have the authority and but he doesn't have the delegation at the moment.
What's the CEO?
CEO's 250, and then council above that is 250.
Okay, and just often there's a significant issue procurement. Have there been any contentious issues regarding procurement in the last few months or last year?
No, there hasn't, but I think there needs to be, and it's something we've spoken to managers about, one in particular, about looking at the full life cost instead of just going, oh, it's only cost me $60,000 this year. If it's a 4-year contract, well, that needs to go to council. We don't sign up on that. So there's probably hasn't been an issue because we've caught it first, but it's something that needs to be I don't say drugged in, absolutely.
And sort of purchases made outside of authority, any instance of that? No.
No.
Any sort of issues from elected members' point of view?
We don't, not aware of any procurement stuff. All of ours would be more relating to budgets and why things are there, and spending money to something without understanding the full lot.
Thank you for that. Michael, was any party?
No, just, I noted that there'll be a question around.
Yes.
So it's good,
Yeah,
a good thing.
we had the panel contract in, but we didn't actually have it anywhere as a part of the actual rate. So that's why it's added in there to anything $5,000.
So
Just my, didn't say anything, thought about it since when we heard Mark speak, probably from an elected member's point of view, our frustration has always been the amount of input the council to conform to standards that are so far beyond the business of this size and capabilities and so on. So lots of boxes get ticked and lots of money gets spent delivering something that actually has no benefit on the ground. And so if there was ever an ability to standardise and rationalise those standards to be just more in line with a business process would be a much simpler and more effective thing. But at the moment, the Act doesn't. We're going the other way. There's more and more complexity.
yeah, just saying your comments are noted.
That's it. That's it.
If we use an example for roll contract, for example, we've got a 3-year contract plus a term of 1. However, some of our invoices are over a number of them for the month are over 50,000. So it means due to the delegations, me processing purchase orders, we have to go back through CEO approval. So while we have the hierarchy of we've got a contract in place, we run purchase orders for each project, but depending upon if they're over the 50 grand limit, we then have to CEO to make changes to it. So whilst the delegations will still be there, having a contract in place that would go to council for sign off, that's a head contract, and therefore we will process it. That's why we're trying to relax some of the delegations slightly. So it's not changing the impact of the contract. We're still going to council with that. It's just how we process that, which kind of relates to the cost of transactional processes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
And those limits should be placed.
and there's quite a significant amount of time and effort going into that as a result.
Correct. Yes. Whilst we look at software improvements, we do have an old style of system, which therefore is a bit clunky in terms of its process stuff.
Okay, thank you. No other question, I have a recommendation that we endorse the procurement policy and recommend to council that the policy be adopted. Yeah, thank you, Mark. Second, Tony.
Right.
Right. All those in favour, thank you, that's Gary.
Thanks, Norman.
Rating policy.
Rating policy. So a lot of work was done on rating policy last year, just prior to myself turning up. So we have not changed anything at all other than some little, I think it's numbers and stuff, isn't it? Some like review dates and what have you. So no need to change it. So the Audit and Risk Committee endorses the draft rating policy April 2026 and recommends to council that it be adopted.
Just a quick query. Could you just explain again the 400%? Just I sort of understand it, but if you tell me.
400% increase.
Yes.
So there was one entity that happened with, and that was the bulk handling. And that was simply that there was a high road use road consumption going in and out of those silos. And to be paying the same as running 0.8% at all, they should be paying more.
Still going?
No, that's from that.
Okay.
They said it that it's now. So it's not really. No. And it was not dissimilar. We viewed it massively, mostly already moved to a substantial recovery. What we did at the time was the savings, but the rate that came in from them was actually returned back to us instead of being an increase in income. That's what I think.
Any other further comments?
I feel like we looked at this last week.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
That's an issue of all. Yeah, changed any of the numbers or different ones.
Okay, so there's a recommendation, the audit committee endorses the rating policy and recommends council to be adopted. Ron? No. Thank you, it's carried. Thank you, and well done with that. Ryan was 5.1 to 5.4. 5.5, Escosa. Wouldn't mind just running through that. It's pretty important stuff, and that affects the other on the agenda as well. So would you like to go to that?
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, we've had SCOSA.
It's just that little thing.
Yeah.
Before you start, I'm surprised you found it in documentation.
I found it on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I was very pressed at doing some work.
Did you query why?
No, everyone was the same. So I said, no, didn't tell us. We had to read it in the press. Yeah.
Yeah, just tell me the factual situation about they come in, they spoke to you.
They did, yeah. So we had 2 meetings with them. So we came in and we spoke about. They wanted to get background on where we're at.
Yes.
And that was smile and nod. It felt. And I do mention that in the report quite strongly. But we gave them how we know where we're at, and we completely understand about our asset management plans. This is what we're doing to fix them. Our long-term financial plan, we haven't updated because it would be just plucking numbers out of the sky. It wouldn't be based in any sort of real fact because we're updating our asset management plan.
How did they react to that?
Yeah, they were okay. Well, if you can get that before this, just as long as you get it before us, before this date, that'll be good. Yeah, and get it. And then they said, oh, you can actually have an extension to January. If you can just get it as well, we're not. It's going to be part of the budget process. So much so, I mentioned it last month from the council meeting that it was strongly advised just get a long-term financial plan. Just get it and get it adopted so we can actually look at it. And it's like. Our council just wouldn't have. It's just not even it wasn't even a question that we'll do it. It's like, well, no, I'm not going to take a whole heap of numbers and go, hey guys, can you do this? By the way, in a few months' time, I'm going to get you actually to do the real one because I thought, why are we here? So it didn't make sense at all. We told them that they didn't understand.
They should just nodded
and just went, yeah, well, we need that. So that's what it came down to in the end, and that's why I've mentioned, that's why for every council it costs $40,000 because they've got a set of steps they do with each document. So even though they sat down with us, they was absolutely sat down with us and listened to our situation and what it means and where we're at and why. There is no nuance captured at all about asset management. They just want the asset plans and the financial figures, not what it actually means for your assets. We could depreciate 50 years for every one of their assets and get it all. And go, yeah, good, it's sustainable.
Yeah.
In the long-term financial plan.
So basically, the way I read it is yes, SCOSA have got all the recommendations which you're doing. You didn't do it because you'd rather wait until you go the real number, got the real.
Well, that's right. It's made up.
So on that, because obviously I read
your statements, what you're saying there.
Yeah.
When I guess applied that thinking, okay, well, the what was the wording? Doesn't capture the nuances, constraints, operating environment, such as Southern Valley, right? And I sort of okay, well, let's have a look then, because that was its start. And I read through, and I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. In that, I couldn't identify which statements, findings, risks weren't just factual. I think what's missing is there's no context that states it, but I didn't find any of them were wrong. If that makes sense, right? The asset management plans aren't done. Yeah, there's no long-term financial plan. Yeah, there's risks associated with those. All of that is true.
Absolutely.
It's just findings, right? Like it's what comes then, what the next steps are, right? Even the recommendations somewhat about getting them done. They're generic, right? Like it's not done, get it done in essence. Like you don't have one of those, you need to get one of those.
Yeah.
Which I found was again all factual.
Yeah.
As you said, probably the nuance isn't there around the context, but I didn't find reading through the ESCOSA report, I didn't find any of it was not on the mark, right? Like there's reasons it's not done. We know we come here and you say, look, we're not just going to do a long-term financial plan for the sake of it, and we go, that makes sense, right? They say you don't have one, you need to get one done. Say, okay, yeah, that also makes sense, and that's clear. The only thing might be around how they arrive at the sustainability needle might be, that's where you say, well, look, I think you're basing it on what we're seeing now. You're not taking into account what we have in the works. So maybe the needle instead of there be there. But I don't think it's inaccurate in that where it's landed on at the moment, potentially unsustainable. Once the long-term financial plan's done, we've got like if you come back in a year and said, can you if you gave us a year and came back and did it, all the numbers would be there, and we think you'd find that the needle would actually be on sustainable. But I think with the information they have, all the information they have is correct. We don't have we don't have this, and based on that, potentially unsustainable at the moment, right? So I got what you're saying, but also I sort of looked at it and went, well, as a point in time audit, the point in time,
I think I agree with you, but
I did mention it in there that my argument for that is they didn't tell us anything we didn't know. So we were already doing this, and we paid $40,000 for the road, which for Adelaide Council is nothing. $40,000 for us is another, if we get a part-time parking gardens get part-time. So
nothing in there was new. Nothing in there was unknown. Nothing in there we don't, as a council, already have plans in place that we haven't been talking about for the last 2 years.
That's right.
On what's going to happen. They came in and said, this is where, but I think part of that is not necessarily just telling. It's not about telling council what they already know. It's about, I guess, bringing that together and putting it up to making it visible to the board to say this is wherever it's at, which is what they've got. Now, whether or not, in that case, if that's the purpose, where the 40,000 should sit is a different discussion you want to have. But I didn't find anything wrong with the findings, but also I said it was everything you knew. You could look at yourself, given it to them.
That's right.
And say this is
that's what you're thinking, and they would have said yes. Which comes across in the strategic management plan anyway. All of the things that we want to do is before is before it goes, but no.
I think that's positive though, right? Like I think sitting there and going, we've got actions in place for everything you found, we're already aware of it. It's a positive thing, right? I think the whole idea is it needs to be done because some other councillors like Barry Barmer or something like that might have gone, I'm sure they knew it, but might have gone, we thought we were okay, but ESCOSA comes in and says they're not okay. They're not okay, right? For Southern Valley, it's you're not too bad. You already know everything. We're not telling you anything you don't know. So that's a good thing. You've got plans in place for everything. But I don't think from what I see, that's the purpose isn't have you got plans in place. It's just almost for the audit, right?
For me, the bigger takeaway is that it's not focused on the actual issues. So let's go, 40 grand is 40 grand, and yes, there's a conversation about equity, and that's an unequitable system. That's not the problem. The problem for me is twofold. One is that ESCOSA in other ratings of other accounts, put aside our documentation. We've been trying to get that data for 3 years now. So this has been a long drawn out affair. It didn't tell us anything we didn't know, but now constituents who have been drawn to this report through media are focused on, we didn't have long-term financial plan updated, we didn't have this updated. They just see it as a paperwork problem. We didn't have these plans in place. And we're no, but it didn't highlight the structural financial difficulties accounts like ours covers. And so we're going through our budget processes now. We're getting all these asset management plans fixed up. We're getting all these things. It's a bit on a, it's on a government drip feed, but it's coming. And the problem is when it comes, we're going to need somewhere between 20 and 40% rate increase to fund maintaining our assets, not increasing it, not improving it, just maintaining it. We haven't been doing that for decades. So the problem I see with the SCOSA is they don't take that into account at all. Going back to what Jason's point was, they don't care if a road's good, bad or indifferent. If you said it's a 50-year life, as long as the numbers make sense in the report, they're happy. Well, we were doing 2%. We need to do 5% just to uptake asset owners and everything else. So my issue with the SCOSA report is it's now become a discussion about the context of the report, the plans, did they really come here? Should we pay for it? All that sort of stuff. And it's completely missed the point that our need to be completely in the red, because the SCOSA, when they come back next time, they don't want us to fix our problems by just charging our constituents more rates. We sat in here a couple of years ago about rates going 10% and had a hell of a conversation. Well, we now know that is insignificant compared to what we actually need to fix. All that just went on was post-COVID hyperinflation and didn't even cover it. So it's missed its point. I was hoping that it would deliver the point, so it was a tool to be used to try and validate the argument of the administration and chamber to say, hey, we're good. And it's not going to achieve that. It's now people focus on the wrong thing, including us.
Okay. And a couple of questions for Jason. Basically, is there anything else you would have done separately if you had the chance again, or you were there when it happened?
Not take a job.
No. If there are a couple of excuses that contractors now that we had, and obviously didn't say it, change in management and all those sort of things. Anything else? Could you have done it differently to your gain satisfaction of that?
For their timelines, no. But for us, the asset management plans, the roads and the delays we've had for other buildings in particular have been unacceptable.
Which wasn't really mentioned in your report.
No, it wasn't. No, because we employed them. So, but it'd be.
There are also things.
Yes. The other thing about it is that really this is all about let's get the job done. And we can't. I think what you have a further problem with your buildings and roads now. You've got to be done somehow. So you've got to have a
So the reality is, I guess there's two other things. One is that it's, to me, as an elected member, it's the same as the rest of our guardrails policies. And that is, even this committee, we've spent 3 years now trying to go from things are pull the blanket up, have a look underneath, and we've got to the point where we understand them and about to put numbers to them at the end of our term. We'll actually have a suite of numbers. Now, those numbers are going to say we need a budget of, 12 to 13 million dollars, somewhere in there. We're at 10.8. We're not going to be able to fund that, so we're going to underfund our budget. We're going to have to, because the people need to make a decision. We've spent all of our capital this term, our political capital, trying to deliver change unsuccessfully. So this is just another ticket box. The data in there, which is what Jason's saying, so they could go, yes, you've got that, yes, you've got that, here's your. It was never about where you actually are in the world. The second piece of that is one of the things that could change absolutely, and what we've seen with our number of CEOs and acting CEOs come through, is administration's interpretation of things is so different. One of the biggest hurdles we've got as elected members is when we ask for advice outside or inside, it's often so different from one person to the next, i.e. indexation the review of the long-term financial plan annually. Oh, no, we can't do that. Are we indexing our depreciation? Oh, no, we can't do that. We've got to wait for the full reval in 5 years. Well, that's ridiculous. That hurts us big enough. So that's the thing that's would have changed. Indexation, yeah, correct. And if we had an index, not just this term, but for previous terms back to amalgamation, we might be in this. Our rates would still be high. It doesn't cure that.
Yeah.
But you're not trying to find this big jump. It would have been incremented.
Previous questions, you should put have indexed.
Absolutely. And we could have
With hindsight.
Yeah.
and we could have fixed, we have examples in print of knowing that our reserve last on average 20 years. But we had 35-year useful life, 4 decades of this amalgamation that we could have fixed that. Jason's there was here.
Yeah.
But if administrations had to fix that in day dot,
Yeah.
our ones would have now been up here, but we've been incremental.
Which is what you said. You said that previously.
Absolutely.
That's why we are slowing condition assessment starts.
And so what's going to come from the work that's now being delivered is that if we were to be rated by SCOSA next year, the needle would be full red, unsustainable without a shadow of a doubt, unless you put rates up by this, and they don't want you to do it. So no, entirely. But the other thing that would come from it is that all of our asset renewal ratios, all the KPIs the government love to focus on, we're sitting in meetings and pat ourselves back, love to go through the floor.
Yeah.
Because we'll be true with our figures, and we've spoken about that before.
Yes. Yeah.
But when that road is now starting getting to the point of hitting the road, this budget is when it's going to hit the road. And we'll have to make a voluntary decision to say, look, we're going to underfund by X. And we were just talking about it before you came, and that will mean we're only doing 35k road. The plans tell us we should do 42 as an example, whatever the number is. So we're not doing that, which means we're creating a backlog here. We do that again next year, the backlog's going to be
Yeah, it's going to get bigger.
Now, how do we take that on? Mr. Public, do you want to pay those rates? Mr. Government, do you want to pop up? What's the answer? But at least the truth will be known. And I think you'll find we're going to be one of the few, if not the council, that will actually be talking that much through. Because there are others going the other way. I love that article saying, well, if we extend out your useful lives, we can make your budget look good. Yeah, we did that by default. So that's where it's going. That sits for me. It could have been a tool for good, and the 40 grand would have been worthwhile. It's actually ended up being a nothing. Yeah, it doesn't help with anything. And all we could have done if we were going to throw the figures up would have been, no, let's take a pun and light hair on fire and say we think it's going to, because really the numbers are what we've been talking about for 3 years.
Yeah.
40% rate increase. I've put that in the paper so many times I've gone numb over it. So has the public. But we were talking 40% 3 years ago because it was pretty obvious that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, so you could almost put that in your public documentation. You could be putting that in. That's
well, we could have got, as I say, interpretation of administrations. I'm not going to say we've had resistance all the way along, but who's wanted to own? And more importantly, once we own it, who wants to fix it? And so we missed a moment of time because we had elected members who wanted to fix it, but we didn't have a consistency of administration. And, I've written down, and I say it all the time, later on in our strategic risks, it's going to be about drinking our own Kool-Aid again. That's our biggest risk, is that we fall back to old habits and just go, she's all okay, we'll just rate down here and just let everything crumble around us, because it doesn't affect the people on the day. It affects people 10 years down the track.
Yes, interesting. Just a situation that was information for me, that was your affordability index, which was, to me, before, without thinking about it, was surprisingly high.
Yes.
You've got 2,000 rate.
We're the highest income per capita. Well, we were. I'm not sure if that's current today, but 18 months ago, we were the highest income per capita of our whole MRLTA district. So all the Riverland, Mowbray, Manning, Coorong, we're the highest, and that peak was in Gorilla. So we actually have quite a few well-paid employees. Our mortgage rates are low by comparison percentage of income taken. Well, we're doing okay. That's not the key indicator for us, though, because 85% of our rate income comes from our primary producers, our funding enterprises, and there's nothing to say they're making good money.
Yeah.
So you can have a business turning over, $10 million, $2 million, $100 million, not saying they're making a huge profit.
So that's don't quite understand that. So basically, well, affordability index for your ratepayers generally is good.
Well, no, because the affordability index is rating the individual. It's saying that the income earners are doing okay. There's not that many income earners that own houses. It's the big and pay our rates. So 85% of our rents come from producers, our businesses. So only 15% of our rates is coming from people who actually got good affordability. The business that employs them doesn't necessarily have good affordability, and they're the ones paying the rates.
Yeah.
They're also the ones consuming the roads. So, can't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
But it's not a good measure. When you go to Adelaide City, that's a great measure, because if your ratepayers have got affordability in your rates, they're paying the vast majority of your rates coming from individuals. Coorong's with that with 11,600 ratepayers or constituents. So they get much more of their rates from residential properties than we do.
Yes.
We get next to nothing. So it's a matrix that doesn't actually pay dividends when you compare, and that's the rates, and that's the problem with the way rates are calculated, because it goes land values from producers. It doesn't go productivity or financial sustainability of that enterprise. It just goes in that land value.
Yeah.
So when you're assessing your rate policy, you take these things into account.
Well, it's better to be put. We just have one.
Yeah, but you can constrain by the matrix, the calculation that has to be applied. Right, you can't make the unilateral decision to say, just say this entity here is turning over 100 million at a margin of 30%.
And we're never going
to. This is their profitability, therefore they're going to cough up.
Well, you're never going to get that.
You can't do it,
and you can't run. Use like that's it. Yeah, there's only two levels you've got. So there's an automatic assumption from my previous history. It's an automatic assumption. The biggest, turning over this money are magically making, the goose that laid the gold. Yeah, that's not the case. I mean, work for plenty of businesses that turn out $50-100 million, and very, very little money if at all.
Yeah,
that's just really. So and I think that's part of the nuance. A lot, but the disclosure is not taking any of that into account, because those matrix don't work in rural communities because our rate base is not residential. You go up to the Riverland, Loxton, Waikerie as an example, they get a lot from residential properties. So that matrix is a reasonable indicator of comparison between one district and another.
Yeah. So just moving forward 6 months, you produce your annual budget and where it comes.
Yeah.
What's it going to say?
It's going to. That's it.
If you can limit to that, you'll be doing well.
1.1, 1.2 million deficit.
And the long-term financial plan, what's that going to say?
What's that like? 1.2 million deficit this year and
continuing.
Well, yeah, I haven't pushed it out yet.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I think we understand the disclosure report. We went the nuances, great with nuances.
Yes.
We understand that. The real issue is what's going to happen now. And one thing we've got to make sure we do get all our ducks in a row for next time round. We can't say, the contractor who was doing the roads and he was too late with something.
Well, July. Both of them we engaged in July. And this is not, we've just let them go and it's been us. And it's been our delays that they haven't had our information. They were going to get our information. So we'll get to that, but they were engaged in July. We were hoping last year. November, December last year was actually giving up a month to contest the data, to actually interrogate the plans with the contractors, so we could actually bring it into workshops and then get it out early. And now here we are.
Yeah, I guess without getting into jumping forward, but for asset management, are you saying the delay was just they took their time and they weren't chased up for it? So
no, they were chased up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we had roads, for example. I mean,
Yes,
we'll do that one.
Yeah.
That'll be a good chat to have.
I think we're just about done this, guys.
Yeah.
So let's not the recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation is that the Audit Risk Committee notes the Central Service Commission of SA Local Government and Policy Southern Valley District Council February 2026 acknowledges the findings and recommendations contained within the advice and the actions already undertaken by the administration to address identified risks.
I know you've asked for a recommendation. Can I say one more thing? And that is that when you look at the sub-bit under there, past 10 years mostly sustainable, that to me encapsulates everything that's wrong with the disclosure report, because it's just taking the data and saying, well, that all adds up, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, all things we just talked about, if you were looking at it properly, this committee, the audit, external auditor, and Escosa should all have come to the same conclusion. Hang on, we got big wrong, John. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's probably what I'm saying. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
He's almost that. That's probably not true. And so then just basically on the data is what indicates that it's sustainable. We kind of knew it was headed down the wrong path, but because we didn't have the right numbers, and you're using those numbers without admitting that they're not.
So basically, we're noting the SCOSA.
Yeah.
We acknowledge the findings and.
It shouldn't be a long one, but I can be keen to keep them.
Yeah, because we're going to.
Yeah,
Declaring.
the recommendations in there, the logical next step is okay, take the recommendations, turn them into actions, come back next meeting and the meeting after that, just with the status update on all the actions, right? But looking forward at the strategic management plan and that, it seems that the actions are all captured in there anyway, somewhat, right? Like there's I don't think there was anything clear and missing. The question really is, are you happy that there isn't an action that's not already captured in, say, the strategic management plan actions that needs to be added somewhere out of the, because as you said, the general public will look at it and be like, well, here's everything it says, right? Or here's what we're seeing, right? Is this all being addressed? What about this point here? What about this recommendation here, right? And I think they're at such a high level that you can kind of say, yeah, look, that these are this and these are this and these are this. But yeah, the question is there anything in the Escosa report you think isn't being addressed that needs to be added somewhere?
Yes. No, I don't. I think you look at all the stuff we've started doing. I think it's all basically not in response to, but in anticipation of almost.
That's towards the next item. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was more just while we're on Escosa, is there anything in?
So another one.
No, move.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Important item. Next one. Strategic plans, asset management plans.
Yeah. So the work plan does say that we'll bring back the asset management plans to the Audit and Risk Committee.
Yes.
So the easiest thing to do would just bring it back. We'll just copy and paste what we did in the last council meeting or the last council meetings and redo it, but that's not quite right. So in my mind, we want to just get a little bit more discussion and a little bit more. Instead of just leaving the ones open and then just say they'll get done, but actually give you an update on them, because it's come through. Obviously, it came through so obvious in the audit. They said you need to have this, you need depreciation, and your rebuilds need to be done for all your infrastructure assets. So and then it came through in Escosa as well. So we thought we'll bring the two. We'll give you the two that are done. That's what one of the big reasons Ben's here. So he can talk to that, and then also give you an update on the other two, and we can have discussions there about. So if you want, if Ben wants to kick off CWMS, and
so for CWMS, the asset management plan, we reported to council. We went at public consultation. There was fairly good infiltration of about 6,000 people that have clicked on it. We didn't get any formal response. I guess the SCOs were doing it in their portal anyway, in terms of CWMS stuff. In terms of a risk appetite for CWMS, we have very old infrastructure for some of our CWMS systems. which means we're not quite up to the technology that other councils have. So you can then modify through automation, turn pumps on, turn pumps off, have shut-off valves where you can isolate one part of a system. Lameroo is one pressure trunk main with no isolation apart from what happened a week or so ago. We managed to squeeze one in. So that comes through as a risk for us in the CWMS asset management system. We also looked at that where we had a 10-year plan or 12-year plan. This CWMS asset management plan took about 2 years to progress due to I guess illness with the consultant, a couple of management changes, etc. And I guess some figures coming through and detail analysing those figures. So from a risk point of view, we believe we've captured the elements of what highest risk is. Not allocating enough funds for pump replacements, not going to automation, so we can see before we start to have fluid on the ground, we have a problem. And then being able to isolate a system where we have no shut-off valves. We found 12 months ago, 18 months ago, we did have a blockage due to how the system was managed. And that blockage meant a very substantial cost of us to deep water, to pump, to fix the blockage and to get it back operational. So since the asset management plan has been evolved, we've done some additional, I guess, overarching management decisions or administration to say, with slight adjustment to the long-term financial plan, the asset management plan is to say, let's get our pumps up and running. Let's bring forward some of those so we can get the automation. We can budget for those 30 to 40, $50,000 pump replacements, so we can get them, more effectively managed. Once we have spillages, etc., we've got to report them up. So that's a risk we didn't want to take. So we believe that's all captured in there. We didn't get a lot of feedback from the community, but council has endorsed that back in March. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm getting plans. Yeah. So council endorsed that, basically subject to very little feedback from the community. Doesn't mean that the community didn't see it. There was 6,000 taps, etc. And again, most of that was through our socials, through Facebook. Instagram was just click, and there wasn't sort of direct traffic to where the documents were. The people did come and download the documents. We're looking at an upgraded website so we can get a bit more intelligence coming out of, what were people interested in, what were the pages they wanted to know, etc. So take that as long-term coming, but it's adequate for us moving forward. It does give us a 10-year or 12-year program with some timelines. A risk that's outside of that 10-year program is ageing infrastructure for Lameroo. But we've acknowledged that in our administration process to say we need to get automation on our pump stations so we can start to see when parts of the system start to become an issue.
Just as a note on that, so previous chain terms, I think they spent $5 million, I think, upgrading the Pinaroo system, which was equally, well, actually probably worse. It was one of the oldest earthenware systems. So Lameroo's the one that's still original.
What year did they pick up?
2044, I think it is. Yeah. So that's a $2 to $3 million upgrade required for that.
In today's
dollars. Yep.
Yeah.
So again, a risk point of view is we see that coming, but it's not in our current 10-year long-term. So we want to make sure we can manage our system up until we have critical failure, and then we start to progress that. In terms of digressing slightly, in terms of that upgrade, we have spent capital money on it for Pinaroo, which means we can then, I guess, offset Lameroo high probability of failure in 10, 15, 20 years' time. We can offset some of that loan funding, etc. So hopefully we'll pay down Pinaroo in the meantime, that then will give us a bit more capability for higher expenditure. You also note in there, potential for growth is very minimal. It's about 1% over 25 years. That's on the precursor that there's no substantial horticulture business enterprises that come to this council region. So if there was a significant population growth in that industry, that would be a potential change for us. We're starting to see that a little bit through some of the developments coming through. They're not substantial at the moment, but we will see some CWMS impact over the next 12 to 18 months, where there is one of those horticultural industries that is providing some more accommodation. So
Would be worth noting in that as well, that was a secondary, and that's because people aren't able to or willing to repopulate vacant blocks that are already on the system. So we've got plenty of available land in both towns, but people live with that land is all the people that don't want to get rid of it. It's a cheap little big yard.
Yeah.
And that's where the CMS and the water run straight past. So people are putting in new developments on the outskirts, from the edge, which then require different loads and things on CWS.
Yeah.
and one also thing to consider as well is our townships are based on clay, so some of the soakages don't work. Therefore, septic system that's connected up to CWS is their sort of only form of, I guess, development in townships at this point in time. So we will have to have that upgrades in the future to have high densities in the townships because the old soaks just don't work. So,
Okay,
so that's CWS.
no, just, it's just, I'm looking at page 112, page 17 of the report, consultant report, life cycle summary, which gives us, I think, all the expenditure proposed. Is that correct? See 17. Community waste mentioned. Sorry, has to mention, yes, page 17. Got it. And yeah. How does that? That's there. Just say it's, you know, best we can do, appropriate and all that sort of stuff. What's the impact of that? You know, you've got the capital renewals. And is it?
So
yes, well, you talk to it.
yeah, if you go back a couple of pages to 4.6, that shows per township what the years are in regards to the dollars spent.
Yes.
So you know, I can talk to that a little bit more detail. So some of those are pump stations that need to be upgraded. So pump stations are about $30,000. So there's a number of those coming online. We have brought those forward in the last budget. So this budget we're in at the moment, we'll be seeking to bring them forward again. Purely so when those pumps start to fail, we've got the cash sitting in our budget to do that. If we don't use it, we can then, I guess, push that out a year or two. And also looking at the automation component to it. When you get further down, 34 to 35 and 36 to 37 budget years, that's when we start to look at pump chambers. So the actual hole in the ground that holds the pump waste in there, plus some of the other pump chamber stuff in there as well. So yeah, there. So in terms of substantial costs, there's I guess there's some little increases. Majority of it is keeping and maintenance. So the graph we were talking about, operation wise, we keep flushing our mains periodically instead of just every 5 years when we do an assessment of them. We flush them to make sure they operate. So that's why I need the operational budget as well. So.
And just in talking about HDS and say you, because you're the guys decide on what was the control aspect, like who's running the show, who's making the big decisions, who's knowing what they're doing.
Yep.
Between HDS and yourself.
So HDS, they came out and did the inspect condition audit and inspections. They took my two coordinators at the time, so which are still here, looking at pump stations and having a visual, looking at pump stations, looking at systems. And looking at inspections of where they could get access to. In terms of the pressure main, they couldn't access that because there was limited aspects of that. In terms of that raw data, they then analysed that and said, here is a renewal program. So pump stations had an asset life of 15 years, pump chambers were more like 50 years, etc., and systems were more like 70 years. In terms of that base data, that came back in this draft report. That was about the time when I was at council and it sat idle for a little bit of time to say, where do these figures come from? And there was some medical issues with the consultant at the time, so that's why those delays. From there, the report was drafted and it was, this is where it is. We consulted on it. We tweaked and asked a lot of questions at the time and said, what if we were to automate the system? Could we get a better life out of it to asset? Yes. could we modify and say our polluts are due because you've all 15 years? We know some of our pump stations or our pumps were getting replaced quicker than that. We didn't have a budget. It was just a budget review process to come through and renew them. So it was more turning the dial to say, can we be more proactive? So it's not aligning to what the report's saying. It's trying to say, how do we then know the information coming out of the report, and how do we then administer through a budget process?
So they would take what the experts, the engineers at HTS, turn it into reality of what Ben deals with. Ben, yeah, so it was Ben and the engineers.
So you're actually quite happy with the result.
Quite happy with the result, but also questioning over, so what's happened in the last 12 months since I've been here? We've really critiqued what is in this report and saying, why do we need to spend the money on certain things? Does this work?
Yeah.
We know that we had a blockage and it cost us a lot of money. So how do we then stop that happening? How do we keep the intelligence here with our staff and build that and say, well, it's not just when the lights come on, we go and have a look. When the power goes off, we drive around. We need to look at systems. We also need to work on our contractor negotiations for better ways. Is we know that we rely heavily on contractors, plumbing contractors, pump contractors. We know so we know they come out, they action it. So it's trying to say from our internal resource to management style plus the local contractors, we're better in the last 12 months because we've pushed everyone's decision making to say, what about this? And it was proven in the last fortnight where we did have a slight leak. It was in our pressure main. We knew that we'd have high pressure issues with pumps failures. We diagnosed that, and there was a solution we came with very little public impact from a system failure. So that's hidden, not hidden, but it's not highlighted in the asset management plan. But knowing that critical infrastructure, we could put plans in place, we could do it in a cost-effective manner. Okay. So it cost us about $6,000. 18 months ago, it cost us 65,000 plus. So there's a subtle difference.
Yes, you know, satisfied with whatever the word is.
Is the report usable? Does it give you what you need? Yes, of the asset management plans. That's the key.
Yeah. It goes for our risk appetite. It puts it to council to say, and council, well, we did go through this because it was the first asset management plan we presented to this elected body. We went through a workshop and we said, this is why we talk about these risks. This is why we talk about this. We do have some risks that are coming forward, so they're aware of that. However, we're dealing with these current issues over the next 10 years, and we're making sure that we've got a few levers in there we can control administration wise, but also the chamber know.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that's the CWS.
I just want to add a little bit on the process too. The workshop we had on CWS, it was really good.
Yeah.
And it was, again, it's something that Ron's mentioned a number of times about information coming from admin, where this should have been done ages ago. And any questions, because they were all really valid questions, and questions that it wasn't the elected body going, here, where are you? You should be doing this. You should be doing this. Go speak to my pump guy. There was none of that. It would say, what does this mean? And what about this? And what about if you did this? And how about that?
Yeah.
And what about, it was a good discussion. And it's just sort of what we want to keep doing. And yeah.
So basically, that asset management plan you're happy with, really. And now we talk about stormwater.
Well, just before we do, from administration, from the elected member body, all we've been saying to Ben is we're happy with the plans and the structure. Obviously, we've taken a decision not to do any increases in fixed term debt at all this term. We've not spent money on anything other than pretty much the roads. And what we're keen on though is for the administration to decide and put forward, is it worth encapsulating a whole bunch of this capital we're needing to the point of bringing some of it forward so that we borrow for that, because that's a good borrowing, and deliver those returns of automation and that, maybe not waiting for something wherever. Let's what's the total scope? If we spend $2.5 million to solve that problem, and in doing so, because where it really kills us is when BAs keep coming back and we keep doing budgets that have no service to begin with, and we'll wafer thin, and then we're in deficit again, and then everyone's scratching around trying to find how you can come out at zero.
Yeah.
And it's a problematic way of going about it. but you can't just keep adding everything to your rates. Sometimes borrowing for that big capital stuff is better.
especially with generation.
Yes.
Okay, so can we leave the first one and go to stormwater?
Yep. So stormwater was slightly, I guess, below.
We'll get there.
Yep. So stormwater, we have got the consultant. Oh, sorry, page 90. Yep. So stormwater asset management plan, we've used Woolwich and Gilbert for the second time. They were involved in the previous asset management plan, so the detailed, I guess, condition assessment as well. This time we did it slightly differently. We engaged the contractor to go through and flush and CCTV camera the project beforehand, the stormwater pipes beforehand, and then gave that information across to Woolwich and Gilbert. Half successful. We took a little bit of ownership over that rather than just giving it all to Woolwich and Gilbert, and they made their margin on top of it. So there was a few stormwater pipes that were picked up, and that's what was you'll see in the report. There was some stuff that was missed. We have gone back to previous data on that. What this does show, using the consultant again and using the same contractor, is we now have 2 snapshots of our stormwater system from about 5 years ago or 7 years ago to where we are now. Which means when we come up with solutions, we can say, we know that it's deteriorated in this section of pipe. You only need to replace this section of pipe to get your operational service level back up again. So that was what's come out of this report. We're looking at total net value of about $8 million. Sorry, $10 million, $8 million for Lameroo. Pinaroo's smaller system. Lameroo, very quickly, is a very older system with smaller pipes, etc. We have started flushing those on an annual basis as well to try and make sure those pipes, which is what we probably haven't done over the last couple of years. So again, making sure that what we do have is in there is actually operational. In terms of our risk, we've gone through our risk scenarios as well. Our stormwater pipes are pretty low or pretty small diameter, which is potential high risk for blockages. Which is a service level issue, a minor service level issue, but also that's based on a pump system. So it's not a gravity system that basically goes away. If our pump fails at Lake Roberts, which is just down the road, that pumps up to the lagoons, we're in a little bit of trouble. So it's recognising those. So there's 2 pumps that come into the current forecast. One of those we allocated about $46,000 in the plan. That went pear-shaped just recently. So I have a temporary fix on that. We're looking at putting in this next year's budget, but we may move some money around this year to be able to make that happen. Because it is critical infrastructure, and it was with the rain we had in March, it kind of highlighted that there is one. So in terms of the financials, so risk is identified through there. We picked up on that. Again, pump electrical faults identified. In terms of the longer term risk, most of our stormwater pipes are failing because of overloading or low capacity. Overloading due to vehicle, either when they're installed, standards, and potentially crushing risk of increased weights of vehicles. So potentially we can just do small sections, like I said, which we've allowed about 75 to 125,000 a year to do those small improvements over the 10 years. So
Again, your overall view of the.
Overall, I think it's good. In terms of it sets a 10-year program. We've got the data behind it that backs it all up, so we can go back to it and say, let's deep dive into this section of pipe. No, it's failing. Consultants, again, it's the level of accuracy in our stormwater asset management plan is awesome because we've used the same consultants, got the same information, so it's 2 snapshots. So that's a good outcome for us. In terms of the valuation component, is where it's a little bit inaccurate. We're trying to get the costings in there, which will then determine our depreciation factor. So we have liaised with Vanessa and Tony in regards to that aspect to make sure we're not depreciating or having a higher value than it is. Also, the consultants have gone through this, which is a consultant that I guess analyses how we come up with those figures. So for me, they are slightly inflated because they're a city-based capsule cost. For us working in a regional area, we probably don't have that expertise in-house, but we should be looking at doing that over the next 10 years. Stormwater is pretty straightforward, simple. How do we do it for less money?
Just.
Yeah. Happy with it, yeah, we did go back. Appreciation schedule with the. I think. With the contractor, but I think we've got it to the best we can.
Okay, other comments?
So we have, sorry, just cut you off. We are going to consultation very shortly. That will be in the media in the next couple of days. It's not currently. There was a slight delay from council meeting. We went back and adjusted the asset management plan based on some tables were incorrect, and that's why our television see at the moment. So okay, yep.
Okay, let's move on. Roads.
Yep. So road asset management plan. This is where it's a little bit more in the development stage. So again, we used HTS previously in 2020. We've then gone through and used Nitro, which is new technology using a bit of AI, having a vehicle that goes around. The condition assessment was very similar in the last 5 years. There's some slight anomalies. And in terms of trying to make sure we have the right asset register, we've done a lot of work in the background to try and critique those, make sure they're well aligned. Currently, we've got the asset condition, we've got the 10-year works program. The data we have is every 10-metre increments. So we know our roads are per every 10 metres. So that's slightly different we've done in the past. What that will allow us to do is to do some pinch hitting of if that whole road segment has 4 potholes in it or 4 sections that are bad, we can go and pinch hit that. So in the past, we might have had to resheet a whole road segment. What that will do, there's 64 kilometres of our worst class 5 roads, or condition 5. We can potentially bring them up to a reasonable standard fairly quickly in the next year or two, instead of doing full road segment.
And so the condition assessment isn't just here's a spreadsheet either. We've got a whole online portal that displays every 10 metres. We can zoom right in.
Yeah.
Click a tiny bit of. Yeah, so it's awesome. It's very good. We do it again in 5 years, 4 years. We'll be able to see what our budget does, what our maintenance, what our renewal schedule looks like, and what it actually does to the condition. See that instantaneous. So it'll be fantastic.
Remember the roads were finished.
I'd like to say we get a report hopefully to May or June this year with a draft asset plan. So obviously we don't want to go. We've involved council in the capital works budget, which is based on this data. We want to make sure that we are happy from an administration point of view that we've got the draft asset plan where we need it to be.
And if you don't, you'll adapt it to still be a plan goes forward.
Yeah, and we'll make recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, questions on roads? Buildings.
Yeah, so just, I know it looks like a cop out, and I really hate to see you've got delayed because of staff, and contractors. So we were originally sold their brand new vehicles. So what they've done for the condition assessment is to drive around, all sorts of sensors, LiDAR and all of that. We were sold, look at this new car, well, you guys are going to use that. It's going to have LiDAR. We don't know how to display LiDAR yet, but we're going to have the data, so that'll be ready. And we've awesome. It'll be great. Can't wait. And then we got cars quite ready to this calibration. You're the first to use it. We're just sort of setting it up. So then we pushed out another month and then another month and said, actually, we're going to have to use the old car.
Yeah.
So then we use the old. So then we've got the old cars, all the stuff we were sold, which is fine because we've still got a fantastic product. It's just not what we were sold. Now we get the condition assessment, and then it turns into the revaluation is hard. And they're using external, so it's been a hell back and forth. It's been delays that we're trying to get revaluations, and then we're trying to get, and as per condition assessment and as per our asset register,
to put together budget, appreciation, and the 10-year works plan. So it's been frustrating. Yeah. So,
But the point is, at the time we got it due, you've got, it's not really your money to make your own decisions to adapt it, so these were, you know.
it'll be ready. Yeah.
We don't, I mean, the reality is we don't have to pass the budget
No,
immediately,
no,
and we won't.
no.
And in defence of them as well, we couldn't get uptake of this. We started talking to them some time ago, well before Jason. No. Well before Jason, we put this proposition forward, and the current administration at the time, neither of these two chaps were there. We couldn't get any traction as elected member body. They weren't interested in that. They wanted to use HDS again. And so we also caused our own delay prior. So we're getting there, but we won't. You can rest assured, elected member, we won't see a budget until we understand what we're doing, and we have a quantified piece in there that makes sense to us, and a road policy and asset management plan back.
Okay, so we're ready to talk about the approval of the incentive plan update.
You can, if you, unless you want me to speak about buildings.
Oh, sorry.
We've got buildings coming as well. So let's start with that.
So,
So,
what was on the list?
no, yeah, so buildings has been more frustrating than anyone. So the road one is in my time, so I'll cop that. The buildings, there has been an internal, so an admin delay getting it to actually make the decision in July to go ahead with it is frustrating. And the council's been talking about it for years, and you've seen it. So I won't cop that, but I won't cop that delay. I mean, I will cop that delay. Sorry, that's happened. But the delay with what's happened, yet again, it was at the same time. It was July. We'll have it done by November. Everything. Now, we asked if they need to use contractors, if they could use local ones. That, you know, I mean, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. We'll fit you in. Everything will be fine. Now, we've come back and said, oh, yeah, local contractors aren't answering. That's why you haven't got it. So, yeah, but they're your contractors. You call them. Oh, yeah, and then it's delayed again. Our guys, I've been on to them weekly. They have been nagging. So the final part of it is fire systems and electricals, and so air conditioning as well, and they're out this week. So once that's done, we'll have a 10-year works plan, 10-year maintenance and works from them for our whole buildings. Asset base, as well as we've componentised it out as well. So I said we want to see electrical, we want to see fire systems, and we want to see, you know, structural for the whole, we want to see roofing, guttering, that sort of stuff. So we'll have that again. It'll be, yeah, it's 90% as well. They're telling me 90% for 3 months.
And the point is, when the deadline gets there, you will have a plan to have an asset management plan for buildings regardless.
Yeah. This one will get done as well. Well, they've given us indicative figures, which don't really help. I'm saying, oh, here's your figures, here's what you should be spending on maintenance, here's what you should be spending on capital renewal. If that, there we go, that should help you budget. So, yeah, I'm not going to take 70,000 just on a whim. It needs to know what buildings it is and what the council appetite is to change it. So, yeah, that's another frustrating one. It's, I've spoken to the councils.
So any queries on buildings?
I think it's just worth commenting that whilst this has been a long time coming, it's not just about informing 10-year maintenance plans. It's also about saying you shouldn't be spending tens of thousands of dollars each year on something unless you know the big picture value and condition of it, so you can then engage with community. Having said that, we just engaged with community over the past 3 or 4 months, 5 months, about going from one chamber to from 2 chambers to 1 and taking the safe one off of that. That was withdrawn and created a lot of consternation in the community. So it's apparent that while rate increases aren't what they want, neither is necessarily reducing infrastructure. These reports are quintessential of that because it's the structural and quality, particularly about what is this thing and its condition. So it actually holds big weight hopefully once we've got this outcome, and then maybe we can then build our own capacity to monitor it from them, because I don't think we need to bring outside contractors. No, next time to do that, once we've got the thing made, you know, you can get an engineer in for a specific thing, but you don't need to get all this. It's ended up more complicated than we needed to be. We can monetize it. So we don't have to go through this again. We can go through it every day. But not the condition assessment and the works plan, because from now, set line sand, we should be able to set a renewal schedule. The spreadsheet that's got Lamoureux Hall, air conditioning, end of life is here. We come to budget, it doesn't have air conditioning. So conditioning here, end of life 2027, and we should be able to go, hey, Charlotte, do you need that? Oh, it's perfect. Push it out. I think it's also, it's having, one of the next phases will be how do you cement that into the feedback or the information set of council, because it's become apparent that historically there have been attempts at this before, whilst they may not have been up to scratch. It was something, and it's like, well, how did that get left behind rather than just improving on that? We're starting from scratch again. And a lot of time and money gets wasted seemingly doing things that have already been done before. Yeah, that's right. And that also builds a lack of trust from constituents and previous councillors about why are you doing that? We already did that. So it's having some mechanism to know what's been done. Up there, because unless it's in a set of agendas minutes, you don't know where it disappears. Yeah.
A lot of long time coming. Just be interested to see how many 75-year-old news boxes are out there.
Oh.
I know that's been something you've been on for a while.
But allow me this. It's the same as Romans proof water runs downhill. Some of the same as complicated as it needs to be, but by gee, we can complicate it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the people sitting here, which has been generally speaking. Yeah.
Probably a question looking at it, I mean, it's great, right? To actually see it.
Yeah, but this conversation should have been November.
Yeah.
This is driving me up the wall.
Probably the question I have is, or then related to how the impacts in their long-term financial plan and all that, specifically looking at 2030, right? Just the one that comes up across stormwater and CWS. There's I think it mentioned sort of 3 peaks and 4 peaks in funding wise, and they also, and there seems to be a bit of overlap in that 2029, 2030, 31. So that 2030 sort of overlap, if that's, you know, how that's going to be, is there going to be movement, or is that already considered as part of what we'll be looking at with the long-term financial plan?
Yeah, it'll have to be heavily influenced the long-term financial plan. Yeah, which I haven't delved into yet.
But it would be fair to say though that certainly this elected member group was committed to, as I said earlier, making sure that our outstanding debt was as low as it could possibly be. Yeah. So that we can bear out those peaks, because those peaks shouldn't be borne in a year-by-year rate-based funded thing. We fund our own vehicles, we don't borrow for vehicles and all this sort of stuff, and primarily so that we can do, so when if there's a $2 million hit in 2030 to do some work, then we want to make sure there's capital, yeah, like room in the ceiling to be able to do that. Yes, it hits you, but those fixed terms are 15 years, and a lot of those assets are 50 plus. So you're looking to do that stuff. Even if it's 15, it's still pretty good debt, because your rates just can't handle those peaks and troughs. Yeah. If we were operating genuine bucket money like a business might, where you're actually putting away 250 grand a year because you know you've got 2 million coming up, but that's not how we work. That would get spent somewhere else doing a whole bunch of other work, and you can bet your bottom dollar when that 2 million is needed in 2030, it's probably going to be there.
Yeah.
It's not like we'll put away.
Yeah. Okay. And just I'm looking at the recommendation. Are we sort of happy or not happy? Are we satisfied?
Happy, yes, mate.
Satisfied. We've discussed the points effectively. I'm sort of satisfied we have.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have that recommendation. Thank you.
Which one? Which one are we doing?
5.6.
5.6.
Yeah.
The Audit and Risk Committee note the report summarising the update on progress of the asset management plans for community wastewater management schemes, stormwater infrastructure, roads and buildings.
Mark moved, I seconded.
I think yes, Karen. Thank you for that. It was worth a lot of time, worth discussion.
Well, you might get that is where our money lies, that's the most important thing we do.
It is, yeah, and that's why, yeah, I mentioned at the start, it would have been easy just to say, yeah, here's two, we're done, yeah, but let's get it all, let's get it all out there as well.
162 you're looking for?
Was that?
162 you're looking for?
So it was full thanks. Okay, reports to each plan 25-30 performance report. Jason.
Thanks. So this was another one that I brought forward as well. So the strategic management plan performance report, probably in this last quarter, we could have looked at how we've gone with the previous one, but because it was already 5 years old, it was completely out of date and didn't actually make it, you know, why would we be working towards that? So I've included the new one that we've done because we didn't get a chance to table it in the Audit Risk Committee. So I've got a strategic management plan that's been adopted, community consultation, and then adopted again finally by the council. And then on top of that, I've also put the actions down and our work towards them, because that's what the basis of this whole report. So it should be done, I think it's 12 months, and this has only been January or February did we adopt this?
It was commenced in the 12 months.
Yeah,
Just took 3 years. Like a motion.
that's right. That's right. Now, if you look at the actions as well, they're heavily focused on the financial sustainability as well, and on the asset management.
Those are the actions.
The actions start on some page. Ben, where are you? Stand by.
Actions start on page 192. Right there.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we've got another 12 months as well where we review it again with the new council too. So this is heavily focused in the first 3 years, even though it's 5. And then we review the financial sustainability actions completed and or work towards.
And it would be fair to say from the elected body point of view, our view is very simply that we don't know what the strategic plan is in the long term, matter between 40 vision, which will be 2050 and so on. How could we know that until we've got all the data we've just finished speaking about, because that actually determines what is our plan, you know, what is our direction. We're trying to reduce infrastructure and become financially sustainable. And what is it that we're trying to do? Because it can be, originally it was just full of warm stuff, didn't actually deliver anything. So at least now there are some tangible deliverables.
Yeah.
But it's still something that we don't know people's direction is yet, because we haven't been able to present all the data to them. So what do you do? Do you want a race to go up X amount and cover all this and we boot along? Start.
Yeah. So the strategic management plan, the criticism of it was the actions were ensure that this continued to, you know, there was no sort of do this by the state. Yes. This is so much responsibility. So that's what I've done with the actions here, so we can actually have some real sort of tangible measures.
That was going to be my question as well. Still right, because probably one question on while on the screen is say exactly what you mentioned there. What's one, support community supporting groups is one like there. You've sort of got provided loan facilities, which is good. There's actions around what you're doing, but you go sort of further down, continued support of the operation of libraries, and then it's completed with support continues for the libraries.
Well, yeah.
When you sort of, there's a view like that, it's sort of, yeah. What's the action? Because it's easy to say, continue support, right? Oh, well, great, we put that on the action one. How are we going? Support, complete, right?
We paid $12 a year for each one.
Yeah.
So it's that
That's the.
So it would play-
Continued funding, right? Funding
It's because we don't have bodies, they're in the schools, so.
Yeah, something along those lines to show what's the tangible thing, right? Exactly what you said. It's like, that's probably the main one. And then potentially, on them, right, you've got, and I don't know the best way, right? But when you read it, I always get a bit funny when I see something that says the time frame is annually and then it says completed. You sort of go, well,
How do you complete it
if it's annually, how's it completed, or is the action right that will establish, so even the first one, and maintain our memory standing, blah blah, right? That you know we will establish a program that there's annual distribution or an annual review has been set up or something, and then that's completed, right? We've set up the annual program. Right, so is it the setting up the annual program, and then the time frame is we'll have that set up by March, we'll have that set up by June, right? And otherwise, if it's an annual thing, we do this annually. You just say, 2026 complete or something like those lines, right? Like it's
I just mention like it's these plans are that they feel in the same box as earlier comments about tick a box. You need to do a plan, you do a plan, because realistically, 98% of the visionising is internal. They're a bit self-proclamating because externally no one cares about them until there's an issue, and you know that by how many people actually get a copy or look at them. There's very, very few. And so it's almost like you could condense this down to what is council going to do over the next 12 months or over the next 5 years that is its actual strategic things. And it's probably only 5 things that it wants to do. And all of this is just to satisfy a section, the Act, that says it, because no one lives these values. It's just, it gets put in every agenda. It's relative to this point. You said you're going to do that, and here we are doing it. But there are examples, and I'm going to show one later in risk. There are examples where we say we do it, and we refer to it, but then on the other side, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
So do we live them, or do we just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a document for document's sake in a lot of ways. I'm not sure it's a guiding principle of everyone that works and lives around the council. Certainly from a constituency, you only hear about it referred to when they want to use it for they've gone, and how can I attach this point to it?
makes sense.
It should be though. So it should be strategic management plan, then into the, which leads into annual budget, and it leads into everything we do. So that's how it was written. Was for what is the vision? What have we been talking about for 12 months? And what do we need to do to get there? That's going to inform what we do day to day, year to year.
It's almost like we've said we're doing this just generally, and as you said, not really getting actions done, just a list to switch it. Now we're saying these are all the things that can happen, but why is it going to be different next year? Hasn't been happening for the last 5 years. So if we pick specific ones, you find those. And I also worry that, huge risk is, again, without people in this room probably, you could lose people. That would be a disaster. We'll lose 2 people in this room, and then you're back to square one.
Well, that's going to be our strategic risk. And that's the interesting thing about watching each CEO's view of what the strategic plan looks like, feels like, sounds like, and then outside consultants to generate one which is even worse. So I think this is the best version of the strategic plan we've had. It has deliverables things, and there's, I agree with Jason, it should be the document you live, eat and breathe, but there's not a business in the world that manages to achieve that completely. So this is the best version we've had, but you're 100% right. It goes, this is Jason's document, Jason, live it and drive, because that's him. And if he's not here in 6 months' time, then who knows? But you can't protect against that. You can't build that in. It's going to be at the risk of what's there.
Like I said, actions concept was the excellence. As you've done some points, improve those.
It's fine. So it's good. Just good. The question of where's the action? Oh, they're that. Okay, how do we know? Yeah, they're that.
It can be some things like understanding and functioning operationally about it, like, our support of the libraries, like we have MOUs for our public things, maybe it's turning a you so that when there's a strategic register that says, right, it's time to review this, it's actually there. No one's thinking about it, it's now part of that. So it could be just bringing some of those things together into a stream so that it does take it out of individuals to do something. Because we had that problem with leases. We had so many things, resources that were leased, but they didn't have leases. Or the one expired 20 years ago. And that's a way that you can tidy some of that up.
So other comments on performance report?
Maybe just page 1, 16, the introduction. The first sentence there. 69.
Computer, you can type it in 1,000. Control that.
That,
Oh. I've read this thing 1,000 times. That was my hand that typed it.
I said the plan 21 to 25 has been developed.
It's wrong years, okay.
God.
No, lucky you don't get to look very much.
That's
Well done.
but you know, the report is excellent. I'm just saying, and we haven't been completing the actions.
No.
Through from
Well,
COVID, isn't it?
And that's the reason why I brought it to this one as well, because those actions were previous council, previous CEOs. So this one, yeah, that's right. This one is for this council. This is 12 months or 6 months or however before I read this. Is about everything we've spoken about into a strategic document. This is what we're going to do over the next 5 years.
Can you give a bit?
And I'll tell you, absolutely, I'll tidy them. I'll tell you that I don't know.
that's an actual question on that, though. It's not brief this meeting, but vision for 2040. Where does the 2040 come in? Is that a date into the future, or each one we get closer? Like when we started 2040, it was 4 years previous to this. Now it's 4 years closer. So should it be? Is it 20? When does it go? 2050 or whatever? So, okay. So that's just an arbitrary thing. So yeah,
It's the community and the council.
right.
So it's enough to still see it, but for
Well, long-term decision making isn't 5 or 10 years. So what's the next 25, 50 years look like? Especially when your assets are supposed to last that long.
This is where, yeah.
Right.
We could have it together.
Any other comments?
No, I'll move it.
Well, I'm glad it's the best one because
Yeah.
it saves you tens of thousands of dollars. It's just you're welcome. Hey? You're welcome.
Gets carried. Okay, 5.8, performance audit and risk committee. Comments.
Right.
Let's just come back to that.
I've got
There's nowhere to go with it.
too busy too much. We've got that before.
Yeah.
I'll have one to you tomorrow.
Right, so we have to review the performance of the audit risk committee, which we have done through a survey that you'll filled out. Addition analysis, you can see the summary of the school responses there. So reports comprehensive, understandable, average score very good for efficiency and effectiveness. Rated yourselves, actually, rated yourselves. Excellent. Performance of presiding member, performance of other members, excellent. Own performance as a member is excellent, and risk management integration still good.
Can I just interrupt there on that?
Please, yeah.
Those points, basically, there's some people have different sort of views of, you know, like never give 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And always give 9. So I think it's almost a case of taking the top 2.
Yeah.
And putting them together because, you know, I don't give 10 out of 10s. You know, I give 9 out of 10s. It's never quite perfect, you know. But that's just a view, and that's why, you know, some of these things you do say, well, it's, you know, very good and good. You put them together, really. That, you know, what it is. But that's just a general comment.
It's hard to get any sort of statistical
Yeah.
out of 3, you know.
But
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, so keep going.
Well, no, yeah, you've got your comments. I could read through your comments, but you guys gave them, so you probably don't.
I think the most important
probably don't need me to.
really to next few come in. Let's talk about how we can improve the audit risk committee. that's really, that's the whole key, really.
If you scroll down
Mhm.
to the.
So can I put forward that as an elected member? I think one of the significant risks moving forward is a continual risk, which is every time a new chamber comes in, you come in blind, you get pretty much no history and whatever. And my first meeting at the Audit and Risk Committee and last meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee are going to be completely different animals.
Yeah.
And somehow, I think two things should happen. One is I think the Audit and Risk Committee should actually, the independent members' time should cross over more significantly.
That normally happens.
Yeah, because it's not enough. And secondly, it should be a very informative back catalogue of this is what's happened, this is where we are. Because I've found, and I've put in print that, you know, a lot of our issues are because previous administrations and chambers, I don't know, have gone down a path they've gone down, and there's been audit risk committees, and there's been everything else attached to it. And yet it's just been blindly going along and actually dealing with issues.
Yeah.
And I see audit and risk committee as being, you know, the most critical and crucial part to challenging questions of what happens now. And I don't know if it did before, but there needs to be a handover thing with the independent members to make sure that
all
continues.
You know, the terms of vary.
Yeah.
Council, 4-year councilman to.
I've said to Jason, you know, like a good CEO, in my opinion, can run a good council almost relative as their elected member body. Not completely, but almost. But a good elected member body with a bad CEO can't do anything except oversee the demise of everything. And the Audit Risk Committee has to be the wagging of the teeth to say, hang on, why are you doing that? Not about whether you do a drain or something, but financially and risk, strategic stuff, because that's what we're meant to be about.
So to say, I remember all members of the change totally like.
I know when we come in, I think we queued up. We quite quickly had to nominate, I can't remember, but it was pretty much straight away. So I think, to me, it feels like we end at the same time. Well, in terms of
November this year.
yes, once November.
Yeah. So you'll have
It'd be on-
And to me, that's strategically that everything.
It's 1 year.
Yeah, I think but because that's the thing that has surprised me the most is how ill-informed we've been as a chamber, and each progressive CEO, how different their view of it is.
It's in front there, it's all November 26th, 3 of us.
So I think that's something that should be changed, and I'd be asking, is there a way, you know, can we do a year extension or something? Because my understanding is that that's likely to come up. So they separate state elections. And I think there's a murmur that it might be the next term might be a 5-year term or 4-year term to separate. So the only thing that's pointing at is if that's the case, it's no good moving a year on this because it could line up.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's a member's decision, though, isn't it? You can do that.
No, which local government, this one we can, I believe. So I think it's something to be thought about, discussed. So I guess the open question would be, how do you guys feel about carrying over? Would it be 1 or 2? As I say, I hear the 1 year, I think that's good, except for there's a pretty high chance that the member's term will be 5 years next term as well.
Well, I think what you could do, you could go to
1 year.
There might be a situation where.
Well, maybe
might decide, we might let you know, we might only go for one year.
well, maybe it's worth just putting 1 year post the elected member body. So that means if it's only, because if it's that one off, then that makes it 2 years, but after it's only a year.
Yeah, that's good. That's a decision for the council.
Yeah, we can make it, it just needs to be more to us, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm highlighting you guys to me, so just the only.
Not good at all, how we change. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, can we leave that 1, 2? That's a very good point made.
Yeah.
how it can improve.
Yeah. Be good if our elected member bodies only changed half box in it.
Yeah.
We did have some points. I actually think this one in particular, I've said it a number of times. I think that we're in person most of the time is very effective. It's needed for this political council. And in fact, as I said before the meeting, I feel good because I've saved Australian money by not coming, but I've still got here. So that's, it's a big effort, but I think it's worthwhile doing.
Well, and I guess it's also a matter of saying, meeting personally for it doesn't necessarily have to always mean meeting here either. I mean, just people in the room.
Yeah.
That can happen. So there might be something else happening in your time. But yeah, I think it's been beneficial as well. I think it's vastly different. I've enjoyed this group because I think we've really pulled the skin off a lot of stuff.
Yeah, could I just make another point? Is that I think we'll get to it, the work plan. But work plan, I think, should go further on than December, because we want to get our dates. I'd like to get dates for next year. Now, because you haven't been doing that. Then we've had issues.
Yeah.
Because we all have. I'll tell you what I'm doing next November. November.
That's right. It's not hard, particularly when they're meant to.
Yeah. If it's the usual day, it's Wednesdays, it's fine. You get, they might just say, "Oh, can you make that the second instead of the third, whatever it is, but you've got them done."
Yeah.
So that's the suggestion I have. It's just work plan to go through until at least we'll go through until.
Well, I can't be getting subjective quite. Quite it's not
My daughter's free now. In 2 or 3 months' time next year.
Yeah.
So that's another suggestion.
Sure.
Have you got any suggestions?
I think suggestion-wise, not necessarily. I think, like I said, we challenge each other.
Yeah.
Right. Which we need to. That I
think it's a good challenge. Good. There's all that people talk about in boards who don't have groupthink. We don't have that.
Yeah.
Which is good. We want to challenge each other. So.
Yeah. The only thing, and I mention it every year, is probably because it's a small committee on a small council. There will always be some sort of gaps that come up, right? And for us, it's probably the financial piece on there, where from a council perspective, we use an external consultant, and then from a audit and risk committee perspective, we don't have any, I guess, accountants or anyone like that on the risk and audit committee. So that does leave us probably a slight knowledge gap. It's not a showstopper as far as, but there's always going to be something like when you are this size. So
I think, you're right. I think the gap would be 15. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
that's right.
It's not like I'm putting numbers up and you go, "Oh my god."
no.
Oh god, I don't know what the problem was that can do.
Yes.
No, what are you showing? I think it's more of a.
Again, that's the benefit of you and the risk of you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's because we've now got someone who's got that acumen, but clearly we've had quite a long time where we haven't, because we are where we are.
Yeah.
So it's.
But I think even just the last time we've got some good advice come across, and that's really all we're looking for. Really, we can go back and choose some better 6 or 7. It doesn't matter. I think we've done it. So move the recommendations. Someone like to move that. Thank you, Ron. Second one.
No worries there.
Those in favour, thank you, that's carried. 5.1.
Yeah.
Just work
And they're up to the work plan.
210.
So you can see in the work plan there what we have done. We've moved out internal controls one, but we did bring forward the financial governance strategic management planning ones. And the reviews, we brought them across. I would say, where is it? Yeah, 10th of June, long-term financial plan, I think is going, an annual business plan and budget, I think is optimistic.
but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah, I'll have to speak to Tony about that.
Okay.
But that would be really great to get that to you before it goes to council.
Sure.
To get you to look over it first before retrospectively.
Sure.
Adopt it. But we'll work to that date anyway. Other than that, it looks.
All the other ones are more general, I guess that's what we know is and the risk ones there.
Yeah.
Again, and the other point we made previously, and previous item, going through the timeframe to include through to 27, can we do that? You know, just for the next meeting. Could we go through for
Hey, we have to set those in there.
you know your dates for meetings, don't you? Your council meetings, so it's normally works around that. So you can give us some dates rather than.
And we just set these when we want, don't we?
Yeah. Generally, what we've done is in November. Yeah. Well, 2nd of December, but we would get together and go, oh, what do we want to do for next year? Whose diary? Bring up the diaries, figure out what days work.
It's not nothing official.
So there's not. But I think Ross is saying maybe he's just come back next meeting with some proposed. Once we can check the calendar and be like, can we move that forward?
Like council, and we went up third Wednesday of every week.
They can change that, doesn't have to be.
No, really. So we.
There's a pleasant placeholder that you can shut.
If there was the second Wednesday, is this meeting, what is this meeting, just rescheduled through.
So we can have that out of session, because then we can come back to you and say that.
Yeah, this Wednesday.
If you can do that, because maybe because it's not easy to do, because you're really through it. It's the week before council meetings, every third one. Yeah.
But are you all going to be here December 9th of December?
I was going to say November.
Currently, none of us are.
Yeah.
No, it's a proposal.
But that don't have to work.
No.
But unless council changes.
Well, that they change.
Yeah.
We can so whoever's here can change. Any queries on the work program other than that?
Recommendation of the Audit Risk Committee receive the notes, contents of this report and endorse the updated 2026 work plan.
No, second, all in favour, thank you, that's carried. Now, new and emerging updated script and risks. I must say, before we start this, I think it's an important item on the agenda, and it's something that probably CEO's got to sort of think about, being add something, rather than I'm not going to speak of particularly, because in other councils, that's an item I use quite a bit, and it works very well. You're updated. It almost helps you do a mini strategic plan, or risk management particularly.
Yeah.
What are the key risks? And over to you, Jason.
Well, there's a giant glaring one that's in the news every day that's jumping to us, which is fuel prices, and diesel in particular, and diesel availability is probably more.
And inflation.
More an issue. Well, inflation, of course, yeah. So we've budgeted for extra. Now we budgeted for extra to actually put in a new facility, which we're in talks with, Ben, because it's probably most of it's going to be eaten up with diesel prices going from 167 to 367.
Yeah, so a fuel price went from 151 at the terminal to now today it's about $3.03.
This is diesel.
Diesel, yep. So we have done an audit or a risk evaluation over the last couple of weeks. We've got about a month's worth of supply in our 2 depots of full production. So
Still receiving
supplies. There was a bit of a hiccup a couple of weeks ago, but now we're basically trying to order every second week and just a top-up facility. So we've got about 16,000 litres, 16 to 20,000 litres across combined with depots. We use about 16,000 litres in winter for patrol grading as well as construction work. We use about 9,000 litres in summertime. So without any changes, we've got about a month's worth of supply coming through.
That's a strong issue.
That's a strong position. Yeah, we did have a little bit of supply issues, but that's been resolved now. In terms of our budget, we did budget $280,000 last financial year. We took 50,000 out of that for some savings due to no dry grading, dry season grading. So we bumped that budget back to 230. This future budget, we're going back to 280, but we're looking at trying to solve the fuel storage solution issues. So in terms of, from an audit and risk point of view, looking at potentially FOBs to be able to then dispense our fuel more equitable and more auditable, for a better word. So we know what vehicles, instead of a hard copy and instead of dipping the tank, etc., going live with fuel top-ups as well from a tanker or a supplier, and also piggybacking on the regional government contracts as well. To try and improve our buying capacity and our buying power. So, so a number of different things in there. But from a fuel point of view, we've reallocated or rescheduled some of our construction works. So we've reduced our haulage kilometres or mileage, for example, which will hopefully reduce our fuel usage. We've negotiated with our contractor.
Short-term band-aid.
Short-term band-aid, yep. Yeah. So I guess we won't be exceeding based on fuel expense. We'll be saying that's our long sand, that's what the budget can work up to. How much work can we get done until we reach that ceiling? So it's trying to do some short-term works like closer to the pit. Also negotiating with our contractor that is feeling the pinch at the moment, it's a local contractor. They've reviewed their pricing twice in the last month. So they snuck it up a little bit and that's a little more. We've assessed that based on the terminal price fuel. So we know what's costing us and the contractor, therefore we've gone through that. In terms of an audit perspective, it is in our contract, it's a 3-year contract, we're in our 3rd year now. That was because this wasn't foreseen when we started the contract in terms of a water impact, we've assessed it as a and a assessed on merit scenario. So because we didn't foresee that. We did negotiate about a month out before this to roll over and extend 2 1-year extensions. So instead of going back out to the market where we might experience a fairly significant rate increase, we tried to negotiate that and the contractors sort of come on board. So that's our fuel at the moment. We have I guess bandied the idea about some people taking some leave over the time to try and reduce our fuel consumption. But again, that's only just a band-aid solution again, but not knowing what's going to happen in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We've got a plan in place.
What's that review? 6 hours?
Yeah. So Tom agrees to suspend bombing and attack for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
We're also, yes, attached to that is there is inflationary pricing that we'll proceed in terms of the rate increase, etc. We're going to foreshadow there's going to be increased cost as well. So we're just going to, I guess, progress that over the next couple of months. But fuel, we're top of.
Yeah. So not only fuel. So another risk that I see, and it's just becoming more obvious, is apparently Land is so far away from anywhere that we can't get any contractors to even look at anything. I don't think that broke it. But a real strategic risk is our ability to attract contractors at a competitive price. I don't want to use the word monopolistic, but I just did. Is what's happening. So we're getting. We have to accept it, and it is a real strategic risk about what we can and can't do, and how our road lengths are going to be impacted by what happens with rubble supply, rubble cost, and carting. It's getting and civil works as well on top of that we're not at the moment set up to do. It's a real strategic risk or not. And then of course we've got the other one is the people that we mentioned every time. I think we work through that. But they're the two big ones I've got.
Okay, so that's just generally inflation, particularly.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, I made an offhanded comment that we're road builders. That's what we do. And if it's the two biggest things, which is diesel and rubber, where Cactus, I can bring a budget and say, here it is, this is what we should be spending, $2 million, and it's going to do 4 kilometres. We're absolutely Cactus, and we need to work out what we can do to try and mitigate these risks. What is it for Rotherham?
I think you mentioned during the day, but because you said that every 10 metres, or was that? Explain that again, because it seemed pretty good to me.
Yeah, so we've got the way we condition assess our roads was instead of previously we drive the road and the consultant will drive the road and say this is the rough condition or this is the condition of that road.
100 metres.
100 metres. So based on averages, based on someone driving and their experience. This time around, there was 2 people in the vehicle and they took images every 10 metres. And then they used AI and used some intelligence and stuff and analysed it and said, here is the condition of this segment of road, 10 metres. So whilst our road segments have been split up roughly about 2 kilometres long or thereabouts, we took an average of that 2 kilometres. Now we're saying every 10 metres, we can drill into and say that needs rubber or that section is probably okay. And it's given our local environment where we have clays and sand hills, etc. You might treat that portion that's over a sandhill different to the rest of the road. So now we can attack that 10 metres of road and do a treatment for that, which would then improve our road segment condition from a 5 back to a 4. So instead of trying to resheet the whole 2 kilometre section, we might be able to do some of that. Again, it's using our existing resources, our existing plant equipment and labour to then say if they're not patrol grading in winter, what can they do outside of that? And then get best bang for buck and say, well, let's go and put on these roads instead of, trying to
just broad the bulk of the savings. Bitumen, and but as a percentage.
I don't believe you would see a savings up front. You would see a condition perspective from the community that would take the pressure off council to say you need to do 24 k's per road at 150 mil. Now we're doing 35 kilometres of road, but now we might be able to do, say, 35 k's at 100 mil and then do some top up as well at a very cost effective rate. If we can, if we capitalise more of our labour and plant equipment, then we potentially won't affect that bottom such because it'll go toward the longer term improvements. That's the Audit things.
When you think about that particular information, it's just huge.
Well, and it's more, it's, to be honest, it's as much about stopping the continual degradation of what was happening. Because they didn't even drive every section, they drove a few bits and made a decision. And none of them, they didn't do it.
That was good.
Yeah. Sorry.
And it's fully utilising the plant equipment and our staff and resources we've got. If we can keep those staff members active and motivated, etc., it's costing council to hold those staff anyway. Let's use them to their full potential. And potentially the risk that's associated with this is losing some of our across the sector construction stuff. So therefore, there's not a lot of like apprenticeship programs and a bit about that learning, etc. And that's what we found over the last couple of years for us is we do have some very highly skilled grader operators. We also have a couple of grader operators that are learning and they're in that, I guess, growth stage of their career. So they're going to be really great the next couple of years when potentially one of the more experienced operators may look at going fishing or retiring instead. So we've got to build that expertise in-house. Going back to it's our key deliverable as a council, we road builders, as the CEO mentioned before, we need to make sure we keep that resource and try and maintain that skill set and motivation and get them stuff. So
okay, any other
for me, I think there's a few strategic risks that are going to come up. One is going to be it's highly significant changeover in body, and I think with the work that this elected body done in trying to bring the alarm bells and get stuff on board with, I guess that in itself is going to bring with it. It's been listed before as being a you could get but it's also you could lose the momentum for change. And I guess that's co-joined with the strategic risk of either the CEO or Director of Infrastructure Services going. This one is more important in the sense that it's hard to fill, just need that technical knowledge. Without that, and there's nobody, we don't have a second layer. That's it. If he's not here, we go back to the dark ages where we seem to have come from. But we have the same risk with the CEO. It's not about finding people, it's about can you maintain this momentum. And I just wrote down as a note, you know, at some point we have to ensure that we're not going to go back and start drinking our own Kool-Aid again. Acknowledging how we got here and what we're doing, I actually see that as a risk. We haven't, whilst we're developing plans and so on that will see us understand what it's going to cost to do the job correctly. It's acknowledging, it's a bit like an alcoholic, you know, you don't, unless you acknowledge you're an alcoholic. So it's acknowledging, how did we get here? What were the mechanisms that led us get to this? We've now solved it, so how do we stop it going back to there again? And all the guardrails internally and externally didn't work. And so the strategic risk is, unless we can develop some guardrails.
So how are you mitigating?
We're not. That's what I'm saying. It's, for me, it's a huge limitation.
How are you mitigating? Not having an effective elected body.
Well, I think it's the elected member bodies are only bought what they're bought from an administration, and obviously the combination of elected member bodies and administrations in the past have let us get to where we were. So I personally believe it's incumbent upon the administrations to have the guardrails and to have the things so that what's bought is right, is effective, and is in the best interest, and living those strategic goals, transparency and those. Well, I don't. Yeah. I think it's almost, you know, in today's world, it's probably how the council's got to be able to strategically connect. Without it, there's every possibility that no one knows. There's every possibility. We only have 2 nominations. Who's to say you get any nominations? Now that obviously they'll go through the process, and you know that's happened elsewhere. But it's more about, for me, it's, I guess I'm trying to say, how does an administration set guardrails itself? Because obviously the Risk and Audit Committee is part of that, but we have external auditors as well. Because if these guys win, we can be back in 5 months' time.
Okay, yeah,
and it's, you're not necessarily going to get elected members who are prepared to burn so many relationships and hurt themselves for it.
So through the chair, just on regards to the staff, my role, yes, I've been imported in to provide oversight and I guess mentoring experience and upskilling. But I guess what I'm trying to do, CEO's trying to do, is to put processes and systems in place. So the snap sensor management system, a 10-year works program, asset management plans that have some meat behind them, etc. They're not just a document that we tick and flick, even down to the way we document stuff behind the scenes, GIS system with all of our infrastructure that's nominated on there. So a lot of that stuff is, behind the scenes. So we can administer some of that out in terms of if I was in the lottery tomorrow, we'll go cruise and something, not come back. There's a lot of that stuff that we're putting in place.
especially usually get
This is lots of processes and systems in place, but also that skilling of people to say we have got some skill sets in-house that we're now starting to build up. So we will have peaks and troughs, etc. So potentially there's a managed risk going forward. For my position, potentially that will provide some service levels, etc. Having, I guess, action plans, public documents, we have to go back and say, well, DIS, what's the update on? So part of your monthly or your quarterly KPIs, etc., your annual review. That's a part. But again, my tenure is on a 5-year contract, so there will be a discrete sort of 5-year timeline, unless it's negotiated elsewhere. So, but there is process.
Good.
Which hopefully that should resolve some.
I'd like to get to a position where if we moved here and we're selling the same last year, we'll still achieve what
Yes, that's what wants to achieve. That's the only. And then for those that actually
And I guess the mitigation you're asking about of us is that's our wish or desire, is to leave with a set of documents and plans, 10-year financial plans and that are rooted in or ground fact and not in fiction, and therefore, you know, at least that should hopefully put a 10-year window on, not guaranteed, but at least hope.
Mark, any comments on?
No,
I think
it's been raised in the past.
Yeah, sure.
They've been added in the past, succession planning for key personnel type thing. It's exactly what we expected.
Okay, thank you for that. Other business?
Just on the risk side of things, I know unfortunate that Tony's not here, but if I could ask the group to just get out of their chair for a second and come for a little walk for people on the camera. So I want to show you something, and just this is an example of we've got all these things that we think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. No other business, everything closed. Oh, how's the time?
Did you want me to add something to that risks, whatever you went and looked at?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I did was take them out and showed them the disabled access ramp into the building and said it's non-compliant, yet we sit here with all of our processes saying we tick all these boxes and do all these things, yet the ramp remains non-compliant. And that shouldn't be the case if we're actually living our policies and our procedures.
So thank you for that. And next meeting, 10th of June, subject to change.
Minute out of the recording.
The meeting closed at 12:02. Thank you very much. I think very good meeting. Thank you. That's not about just here, just the end of the meeting. We should have a success. So.